Have you ever encountered an angel? Have you ever had an experience with an angel that you'd be willing to share? Do you believe that there are good and bad angels? Do you believe there is light and dark angels? I want to share a short story of an encounter I personally had. And I hope to hear from a lot of you about encounters you've had. All right, I want to thank you for joining me. I wanted to share a short story I had years ago, and it's an encounter I personally had with what I believe to be angels. And I want to know what your opinions, and I want to know encounters that you've personally had that you can say, you know, man, there's just no way that this wasn't an angel, that this was a supernatural thing. So years ago, I felt commissioned that I was supposed to accomplish something, and what that was to build a skate park here in the great city of Danville. And I just felt strongly that, when you let people know you care about what they care about. I kind of grew up as a skater, but wasn't really ever that good at it. But there's a lot of skaters here in this community, and they really didn't have anywhere to skate. They'd go to public places and they'd get kicked off because people were afraid of getting sued. And so there were signs up all over the place, basically saying they were going to be arrested or whatever if they did it. So I thought, man, what a great idea to build, some really cool ramps, a half pipe that's like bigger than anything you could imagine, would just super exceed your expectations. So work would progress. So, we got all the materials together and started building it in a youth facility in the north side of town. A lot of people have probably heard of it, called The Edge. And so, a lot of the young people were engaged and involved in participating in the building of this project. And so we started it, got all the ramp plans. It was really big, it was like 20 feet long by 15 feet wide, and about 12 feet tall, really big half pipe ramp. But the story is, so, it had been started and there was a lot of progress made, and it was like a Saturday morning. And, there was like 4 or 5 people that, I anticipated to show up to help, kind of not a one-man project. So, I get there and I'm just one of those people. I get into work mode and I'm on point. I just keep going. And so it was literally in a place where I was having to temporarily nail a 2x4 on one side of the ramp, go to the other side, permanently nail it, and then go back to the other side, pull that temp nail out, and actually permanently nail the other side. I was having to compensate for the lack of not having someone there, so I was doing it myself. And, a lot of you know I'm a man of faith, so I was just like, Lord, I felt like you told me to do this for the youth and the young people of this community. Man, why don't I have any help? And so, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes went by, and these 2 young people showed up. One looked about 18 and the other one about 16. Never seen them, met them before in my life. Kind of had long curly hair, which you might picture like somebody who's a surfer would look like. And they just kind of showed up and started helping. They're like, hey, what do you need, help with whatever you need help with? And it was literally like they just jumped in. Have you ever worked with someone and you just felt like, man, we just mesh, and you don't even really have to tell them anything. It's like they just see what needs done and they do it, and they just bear down and they get it done. And we worked for probably about 2 hours, and we made a ridiculous amount of progress. It got to be around 5 o'clock or so, and I was like, hey, it's time to cut out. It's been a long day and we've accomplished a lot, and so let's go ahead and just start picking everything up and wrapping everything up. I was putting tools away, and everything else. And so there was scrap wood laying around, and, we were throwing the 2x4s over that we could possibly reutilize for something else. And there were the small pieces of wood. And, you know, they had these gunny sacks. When I say it was these two young men, and they were walking around picking up the small pieces of 2x4. And I'm like, you guys, you could just throw that over there with the other scrap. And I was like, they're like, no, we're keeping this. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it? And they said, we're taking this back to our father's house to keep the fire burning. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. I don't really need those small scraps of wood. And, you know, after we got done picking everything up, they came up, shook my hand. I said, hey, man, you guys were great. I appreciate your help. Didn't even get their names. It was like, I don't know, ordinarily I do. I get names. And, you know, and so they left. And I listened for a car to start and never heard a car start. So I kind of just go out and look outside, and I'm like, okay. And I'm just kind of retracing, the events, and I'm like, okay. So I never heard a car pull up. Never heard a car leave. These guys' eyes were blue like fire, like nothing I'd ever seen. And, you know, it was small talk, mostly work. And they pick up scrap pieces of wood and say, we're taking this back to our father's house to keep the fire burning. And I'm just going through all these events, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Never met these guys before in my life. I had just listened to something that just really changed my life, that sweat is the means in which value is transferred. And I thought, man, we're sweating for this ramp to build something for a community and care about what people care about. And I thought, man, there's value in that, and there's sweat in this. And this is like an element of sacrifice of the heart and obedience on my part to go and work and do what I'm commissioned to do, regardless if I had any help or not. And that help was sent to me to line up with my obedience. And I was just like, you know, and so I just kind of just thought, you know, this was really crazy. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait and see if I ever see these guys again. Maybe they'll show up to skate in a month or so. I never seen them again, ever. And we're talking, you know, I was involved there 2+ years after that. Never seen them again. And so I know and I believe that those were angels that were sent, because that was something that God wanted for this community and for the young people. He wanted them to have a place to skate. He wanted us to care about what they care about, because then they care about what we care about. And that's just reaching people. That's just loving people. And so anyway, I want to hear something from you. I want to hear an experience you've had. I want to hear about a story or an encounter that you've had that can maybe be relative. You know, maybe not just like this. I want to hear all types of feedback, and I want to hear your story.